I love the One Piece trading card game, and I love to spend money on this game efficiently. Buying singles for your deck has always been the most cost-effective way of building a deck, but in this challenge, we throw that all away. Each week, I use a budget of $30 to open sealed product in the hopes of adding new cards to our deck. But since we can only play cards in our color, any cards we can't use, we can trade away. And there are additional buffs locked behind certain challenges. Join me in my journey as I rise up to become the King of the Pirates. You're watching One Piece from Scratch. Welcome back, Pirates, to another episode of One Piece from Scratch. As you can tell by the video length, today is going to be a long one. Not that we're introducing some sort of groundbreaking new mechanic or anything into the series, but the games just ran pretty long today. Regardless, let's talk about two quick things and then we'll get on with the episode. First, I did tease in the last episode that I did make it into the Peoria Regionals on April 19th. So that means we do have a sure date on when we can attempt to take down one of our most challenging poneglyph bounties. Also, if you see me there, feel free to say hi. And second, and contrary to the first, as you can tell by the thumbnail, I'll be piloting our good old friend ST14 Luffy. I want to make sure that we're getting some of our quest bounties out of the way so that when set 10 drops, we can just go all in and prepare for this regional. And also, the new leaked cards from set 11 look super crazy in ST14 Luffy, so he might be back on the chopping block when the time comes around, but either way, with those two items out of the way, let's get right into the opening. So, with $1.51 rolling over from last week's episode, we do have 7 packs of OP09, so let's get right into it. We're still looking for the alt arts. We have not pulled any of those yet, or secret rares. I think alt arts do occupy the secret rare slot, but the 2 secret rares from this set are really good, so honestly I don't mind if I pull them. We did pull the Dawn already, both of them, so we're not going to be looking for that in this opening. Honestly, we could maybe start looking for more Blackbeard cards like Katarina Devon, stuff like that. Oh, Yesop, very cool card. You know, a lot of the new archetypes are more self-contained, so maybe we can like work on one of them on the side. And we have the 7-drop Crocodile, very nice. All right, pack number 2. We've got Empty Bluffs Island, Howling Gab, Gecko Moria, Jozu, Gum Gum Jump Rope, Rockstar, Peachbeard, Building Snake, Jaguar D Sol. That card absolutely destroyed me in the pre-release episode. It was very sad. Kabaji, Kuzan, and we have an alt art limb. Speaking of the pre-release episode, we did also pull an alt art limb from that episode, so yeah, very cool, very cool. On to pack number, 3? Yeah, that limb is not one of the more expensive ones, so it's a little sad that we got that one. There's a lot of good value in this set, and limb is unfortunately not one of them. Unless it picks up steam in set 10, then it could be worth some money. And speak of the devil, we did pull another limb. So honestly, maybe we just play Odyssey for ourselves. I think that might just be a strategy there. Can't beat them by getting, you know, other high-end pulls. Just join them and play the strategy, I guess. So we got Beppo, Sanji, Morley, Richie, Black Vortex, Peachbeard, Odin, Lime Juice, Alvida, Stronger, Zoro, and the Ben Beckman on play. Trash one of your opponent's characters with a cost of 6, or with power 6k or less. That is honestly a super crazy card for Shanks, and yeah, pretty nice. Pack number 7. We do have a leader peeking out in there. Maybe that'll be the limb leader. We do have the rest of the 5 leaders, so that's the only one we're missing. Marco, Rockstar, Brooke, Jump Rope, Get Out of Here, Sabo. That is the black-purple Luffy. We do have the blocker Doflamingo and Cross Guild. All right. We're on to pack number 6. We did get an extra pack this week because of our rolling budget, which always feels nice. We're just digging a 1 pack deeper into the box. We got Pierre, Empty Bluffs Island, Usopp, Robin, Luffy, Soul Frankie Swing Arm Boxing Solid. Basco Shot, Mohi, Jean Bart, Karasu, Mr. 3 Galdino, and there is our secret rare Monkey D. Luffy. Honestly, a really good card. It replaces itself and gives rush, and since you can do one or more, it does work really well with the Luffy to get one more as active. So very nice, very nice. So those are our 2 alt arts that we were hoping for. And yeah, the rest of the box should be dead. Maybe like one more SR, but realistically, we're not hoping for a whole lot more. Pudding, Brook, Alvo Pizarro, Full of Lead, Teach, Jinbei, Never Underestimate the Power of Miracles, Robin, Black Hole, Izo, Don Q, and Nami. Alright, so we did get the 2 hits of our box. The Limb is definitely more underwhelming, I'm pretty sure, but the Luffy is definitely pretty cool. Hopefully we'll be able to trade that off.
And he fills it up beforehand. Holds on the average like
Nice.
They're just a body. But like, I guess for you like have the body.
You wait long enough for next set, you just got to pick up the 4 Kuzans. You might be able to drop Lagoon altogether.
What'd you grab? Hold on.
You want to take those off?
Oh, yeah.
Like the costs?
New ulti shirt.
Oh my word. We are back to a classic of the channel where it all started, the Black Starter Deck 14 Monkey D. Luffy. Why are we switching? Well, just to have fun, honestly. It's not going to be the best deck in the room, obviously, but I think we're going to have a really good time. We did breathe some new life into some of the bounties with Monkey D. Luffy, this one, and the purple-black one getting an update. So we're going to mess around with it. If we win some games, awesome. If we get absolutely turbo dogged on, hey, we had some fun. So yeah, let's get into this list. It's a whole new list, obviously, since it is a new leader, so we're just going to go with the card by card. We did get a lot of trades done, so we do have a lot of new shiny cards. We did finish our full arts of brand new, so that feels really, really good. And then we are going to go on to our Moria toolbox. That's what I'm going to call it. We have 1 Helmeppo, 1 Hina, 1 Kobe. Now, this isn't going to be the most consistent thing ever, but since we are playing the Monkey D. Luffy, we are relying on Deck Daddy Jack. Oh my gosh, he is so back. So I have a feeling that we're going to have a better time trying to get stuff into the graveyard. Plus, we only need to see at least 1 copy of each of these, so I think it's fine. Helmeppo, Hina especially are here because of Jack, since he is an activate main cost-based removal, so we just need to get some cost-based reduction onto the field through Moria. So I think Helmeppo especially is going to be really good now that he's going to be the 2 that we pull off, and if we don't find him, of course, we still have our not Tashigi, it is Suru that we can pull off. And of course, Hina can be brought off of the Rebecca. Now we do have the Admiral still. We have 4 copies of Borsalino. We have the 1 copy of Kuzan, and a Monkey D Classic, a Monkey D Classic, a ST14 Classic, the Hina. Hina does make an appearance, of course. In case you haven't seen this card in a while, let's read it. Dawn times 1, opponent's turn, this card gains 4 cost. It is very important that it doesn't gain on our turn, so we don't cheat our opponents, since our leader does get 1k if we do have a character with cost of 8 or higher on our side of the board. Activate main, we can place 1 card from the trash on the bottom of the deck and give a rested non to a leader or character. So that's how we can really easily activate our Luffy effect in the early game. I'm really excited to be playing that card again, and I think this is just going to be a super fun episode. We do have 2 copies of Isho. Isho does make it a return, just so we have a little bit more consistency with the brand new, and it is an 8 cost, so it's going to be really good. Hopefully we're going to use this to, you know, remove some cards. We do have 4 copies of the Suru, with one of them being the full art from the PRB set that we just traded for. That feels really good. We're going to start to bling out our deck. We have 4 copies of the Tashigi and 3 copies of the T-Bone. That is going to be rounding it out for the navy package. Now let's go on to the straw hat package. It is going to be a little bit smaller of a straw hat package, but it is going to be a spicy one because we do have 3 copies of the Brook. We finally got our hands on more copies of Brook, 2 of them being alt art, which is honestly just beautiful. That really helps out our Poneglyph bounty. As well as in this deck in particular, he is tagged Straw Hat, so he does get a little bit more juice. Maybe that's a little bit of a spoiler, so let's just go through this a little bit more. We have 3 copies of Sanji. I did want to consider 4, but since it doesn't have a whole lot of counter, and a lot of our big bodies don't have counter as it is, I didn't think that 4 would be justified, but the fact that we can really hit Doflamingo pretty hard with this card, especially in the mid game, I think warrants a spot for sure. We do have 2 copies of Nico Robin. I was really between this card and Kuzan, but I decided I wanted to go with this card because it had counter. Plus, it is tagged Straw Hat Crew, which is important for the Thousand Sunny. Thousand Sunny gives all my black Straw Hat characters 1 cost, which these are our only Straw Hat black characters. We only have 8 Straw Hat black characters. But there are some pretty important interactions that can happen with this. First of all, Law in Doflamingo, the blue starter deck Law, cannot bounce back Brook if we have Thousand Sunny and a Dawn on our leader, which is going to be really important so we keep tempo, and we're going to be using some of our cost-based, or cost reduction and then swinging with Brook. So hopefully we can catch some of our opponents off guard with that. Additionally, Sanji with a Thousand Sunny and Dawn on our leader will be pushed up to 7 cost, so that means that it dodges the Gravity Blade Raging Tiger, another big interaction there. And of course, Nico Robin, if we have Thousand Sunny and Dawn on our leader, means she counts herself as an 8 cost, so on play, she can give something -5 cost. So if we have something like a Jack already on the field, and then we play the Nico Robin, we can get a lot more mileage with that. On to our non-engines, or I guess not non-engine, but you know, our other support cards. We do have our 4 Rebeccas. We do have another alt art, which is really nice. Starting to get some pretty shiny cards in here. We got 2 Sabas, same thing. We do have a new alt art. And Deck Daddy Jack. We have 3 copies there. I didn't want to commit to 4. I felt like it might be too much, especially again since it doesn't have any counter, but this deck does end up being Jack Turbo, and we're going to be relying a whole lot on that Jack to be able to remove bodies, especially into matchups like Doflamingo, where we need that constant removal. So again, the fact that Jack is back in a deck with the starter deck 14 Luffy, so awesome. It's going to be a super fun night. Hopefully. And we do have, to round it out, running out of space here. I don't even know if this is in friendly. There you go, it is in frame. We have the 4 Gecko Morias. Since the last time we played this deck, I think we only had 1, so now that we're at full power, almost full power, we do have the 4 Gecko Morias, which feels really good, and then the 1 Kaido. Honestly, this Kaido was the biggest flex spot. I really wanted to tailor this deck towards Doflamingo and try and lean into that matchup a lot more, since that is the most represented deck at our locals. Every week we are like almost guaranteed to face a Doflamingo, so this Kaido isn't really good into that matchup, but I think just in case we figure it, but just in case we go against stuff like Shanks, I don't want to be caught with my pants down. I definitely do want to have some sort of out to stuff like the Rayleigh, the Shanks, the Roger, so Kaido is going to make his way into this list, but only at 1 copy. This is going to be the list we're running for tonight. I'm super excited to just have a new deck to play. We've played Smoker for a very long time at this point, just to switch it up, but you know, still have something familiar is going to be really fun, and we have a lot of new shiny pretty cards.
You should definitely click you reading Queen, just because that happens literally every time I play this deck. Is the person picks up Queen is like, what the fuck do you even do?
Alright, coming into round 1 is versus Blue Yellow Queen. It's been a while since I've read this leader, so let's flash it on the screen. Dawn times 1 when attacking if you have a total of 4 or less cards in your life area and hand, so it's combined. draw 1 card, and if you have a character with cost of 8 or more, you may add 1 card from the top of your deck to the top of your life instead of drawing the card. So as you can tell, this leader really likes to thrive in the late game where they're able to put a lot of bodies on the board that are 8 costs or higher. They want to be utilizing cards like the 9 cost Sanji, which lets you play, I believe it's an 8 cost or less from the top of your deck, and using a lot of the blue support to be able to rearrange the top of the deck. And there's a lot of really good yellow support that also lets you heal, stuff like the Yamato as well, so we're going to be seeing a lot of that as we get into the late game. This deck did get a few new toys, especially with that Nico Robin, the 6 cost 6k Nico Robin. So what that does is, if your opponent has 3 or more life, you can trash 1 of their life. And versus Black Luffy in particular, that does really hurt because we want to be holding on to as much life as we can going into our later dawn turns where we can turn ourselves into a 6k. And on top of that, even when we are turning ourselves into a 6k, that Nico Robin is a 6k body in itself, so it can swing into life. I'm having a really hard time trying to find the pieces to be able to remove them, so I am just going to use that Jack to be able to pop that Bonnie instead. And of course that Hina from Starter Deck 19 being able to bottom deck a card from our trash and give a Rested Dawn to one of our characters or leaders is going to be really huge in trying to demand some counters. So there we got a 2 and a 1, so I'm feeling pretty good that we're at least whittling down the cards in our opponent's hand. It is going to help fuel our opponent's leader effect, but that's going to put them in a position where they're either going to have to commit to a high cost body or start trying to defend their bodies on board. So like these Nico Robins, once our opponent's hand size is going down, we're going to be able to take them down a little bit easier. And we do play the 9 cost Kaido here to be able to trash the 6 cost Mihawk. That was a blocker, so we do get a blocker off the side of our field of the opponent, and we do establish a really high statted body. Again, it's a little bit unfortunate that we couldn't get rid of those Nico Robins because they are at a 6k, so they are going to be either demanding a lot of counter or just taking our life there. And our 9 cost Kaido does get bottom decked by the Gum Gum Red Rock, so unfortunately we are staring at an open board. That all changes once we play the Gecko Moria, because we can now start to establish a lot of bodies. Even if they are smaller bodies like the Helmeppo and the Brook, they are still representing a whole lot of swings that we can be putting into our opponent. And we did not, unfortunately, clear the Nico Robin with our cost-based removal, so we did have to swing into it, but we are starting to make progress on that, so that starts to feel good. And our opponent does play the Yamato to be able to clear all the rest of our small bodies, so they didn't make it back to our turn to be able to swing, but we are still making a whole lot of progress on his side of the field. I am gaining a whole lot of tempo here. I did swing in, he did take that life, and I'm going to play Rebecca, playing Brook, and then playing another Borsalino. So now I've got a whole lot of bodies that I can swing with, that Brook, that Borsalino, if I don't want to use it as a blocker, especially because I had 2 blockers going into my opponent's turn, as well as the Gecko Moria and my leader. So I'm feeling like as long as we can just clear the rest of his board, maybe take a little bit more of his life, then we're going to be in a really good spot to take the game here. And I am going to commit this last swing into life, saying to my opponent, hey, I've got a really wide board, and if you don't defend this life, I am going to clear you next turn. So he does give me the 2 and the 1 for that swing. So on his turn, he does play the Aramaki as well as the Marshall D. Teach, and I think this is a really, really interesting card to be going into the blue-yellow Queen. It not only gives you the 2 Dawn that you need to be able to activate his leader effect, but you can also figure out what card you're going to be putting onto the top of your deck so you can put it into life, so you'll always guarantee at least 1 trigger. Unfortunately, I'm stacking up a whole lot of tempo. They don't see a way out, so they concede, and that is GG. Round 2 needs no introduction. We know what this leader does because it is the mirror match. Our opponent is a little bit newer to the game, so it's kind of cool to be able to show him my series and show him what kind of progression looks like with the Black Luffy structure deck, especially if you are starting on a budget or kind of just need some guidance on what kind of products to buy and what kind of cards to hunt after. Another cool aspect is we don't have to read his cards. We know what these cards do. We've played them before, like this Jinbei, who can't give cost to himself because he is not a Straw Hat. And I know what that Jinbei does very well. I've seen it put in work for me, so once it's on my turn, 1 down to my leader, and I'm going to play that Sanji to be able to pop it. It is only, I believe, a 3 cost compared to the 5 cost that we can pop with our leader, or with our Sanji, but I am totally fine with that. I don't want that Jinbei to become a problem later on in the game. Coming back to my next turn, I am just going to start putting the pressure on, start swinging while he doesn't have the 7 cost or 8 cost on the field or higher, so he is not going to get that extra 1k on my turn. So I'm going to commit 2 6k swings and then use the Jack effect just to be able to cycle. I can't KO that Virgo on the field because it's getting cost and I don't have any cost reducing. So I would have had it to give it cost -3, which I didn't really have and didn't really want to commit, and also didn't have the Dawn for. That 6-drop Nico Robin is going to be a little bit of a threat to us, considering once we make it to the late game, we just want to be spamming big body after big body. So that Nico Robin being able to give cost -5 is going to be a little bit of a problem, so we definitely want to get rid of that as soon as we can. So we do play the Kaido here, activate effect, trash a card, to be able to send that Nico Robin to the grave and make our opponent trash a card. Now I've got a really wide board of really big bodies, so even if he does boost his leader up to a 6k during my turn, I'm basically telling my opponent, hey, you've got to have a lot of blockers and a lot of counter in hand, otherwise I'm just going to be going after your life and I'm going to go for game next turn. And if he didn't have any sort of defense in hand, I think it would have been smarter to start swinging into my board to at least demand cards out of my hand, but we see an open field and that is GG. Coming into round 3, of course we were going to face against Doflamingo at some point in the night, so here it is. I feel like this matchup should be pretty favorable for us under 2 conditions. 1, we go first, or more specifically, we force them off of first, and 2, we find that 4-cost Hina. Of course, Doflamingo likes to produce a lot of aggression a lot sooner than a lot of other decks, but the fact that we can play Hina on our 5-Dawn turn, so 4-Dawn for our Hina, use Hina's effect to bottom deck a card, and then give a Dawn to her, and then give the other Dawn to our Luffy to be able to push ourselves to a 6k during our opponent's turn, does mitigate some of the pressure that Doflamingo can put on. But of course, we didn't see Hina.
Because you were curious. Not bad. I see one more, yeah, I'm happy.
So, coming back to the game, unfortunately I did get hit with Pudding, and that is a Doflamingo, or not Doflamingo, a Gecko Moria back to my deck. So unfortunately we did lose that resource, and he is just going to be swinging in. I'm going to try and protect as best as I can, get that Brook into grave, which is going to be huge in case I do find another Moria pretty soon. I do swing into that Law because I feel like you just have to be attacking their board and try and drain resources out of hand while you're trying to build your own board. And I do establish another blocker in that Sabo to be able to cycle, and as you could probably tell if you're looking into my hand, I did find another 8-cost Moria. I am playing against this leader like I am playing with my Black Smoker, and I'm just going to be using any of my cost-based removal to be able to remove any bodies that come out of hand, and then swing into the bodies that come out of leader effect with anything that I've got, just to try and drain some of his board, a lot of his board, and then a lot of the cards in hand. So we're just going to be putting him down to a spot where he doesn't have a whole lot of tempo. Meanwhile, I've got a whole lot of bodies on board, and I'm just going to start swinging into life and knowing that even if you do put up a board, I could probably deal with it with my massive board. And coming back to Doflamingo's turn, we're going to see him with an open board, but we know Doflamingo very well. He can flood the board super fast, and of course we're going to see that Jinbei come down, be able to play that Boa, so we do know he's going to guarantee something off the top, and he does play a Perona here, which tells me that whatever he saw in his top 3 wasn't exactly the craziest, so he wants to get a little bit either more greedy or just trying to find something a little bit better compared to whatever first option he found. But he does find that Trafalgar Law to be able to put 2 of his 1 cost back in the hand, which is going to be really good for him. And I do hit him with the Isho to be able to remove the Pudding and the Trafalgar Law. The Pudding doesn't really do much in that scenario since I am pretty low on hand size, so I'm guessing he felt pretty good about hitting that one out of hand. Isho on my side of the field is actually going to be super huge in terms of, hey, our opponent only has 4-cost bodies, Isho is going to give a global -3, so stuff like the Brook is automatically going to KO anything on his side of the field. Basically, we can use any sort of cost-based removal and just sneeze on him since everything's getting a global -3, which feels really good. Sanji does go down, but we do see a whole lot of bodies sideways on our opponent's side of the field, so that means, hey, we're just going to be hunting them down and trying to go through them as best as we can. So we do get the Boa blocker down, and then we're going to swing with our leader, picking up that Jinbei, and unfortunately when I do play this Moria, I don't have a 2-cost engrave to be able to pull off. I really wanted that brand new engrave just to get another card in hand, but still being able to use that Rebecca to grab the Brook and KO one of his 4 costs is going to be huge for us tempo-wise. And our opponent is going to use the Trafalgar Law to bounce the Brook back to hand, which is fine with that by me. As long as I keep that Isho on the side of our field, then we're going to still be able to use that Brook to be able to KO any of their 4 costs in tandem with the Isho being on our side of the field still. And never mind that, because I do use it as counter, I do believe I have another Moria in hand, so when I eventually get to play that Moria, I can just pull it back off of Rebecca and then play it again. And I do make a really funky looking play here. I do play the Gecko Moria, but I do replace the brand new with the Moria with a brand new. So why did I do that? I was was really afraid of the event that lets you rest an opponent's blocker, because I did know he had that in hand. He searched that pretty early into the game, but analyzing the actual board state, I was never in any sort of trouble. I wanted to keep up 2 blockers, but I really didn't need to. I had the life to spare, so I definitely could have let that Rebecca go and then just played the Brook over the Rebecca, but you live and you learn. And now on my turn, I do have a whole lot of swings, and I'm just going to swing them all into life, knowing that he's just going to be taking a whole lot of damage here. But that does mean he advances a whole lot of cards into his hand, and at that point I was really scared to go for game, because I was like, okay, what if all these cards are 2Ks? But I think I should have just attached everything to my Boursolim and swung, but he concedes, and that's GG. Round 4, and it's versus Yellow and Enel, and it's been so long since I faced against this leader, and I think the last time I did, it was probably at a Peoria Regional, and I was still playing RP Law, so that tells you how long it's been since I faced against this. Generally, you do want to keep them at that 1 life threshold. If you do decide to put them at 0 life, they can just heal again, so really, if you want to bring them down to 0 life from 1, you have to hit them twice, and you have to be sure that you're going to hit them twice, and even at that, they can still heal that 1 life, so you have to do that all over again. So basically, you kind of want to just keep them at 1 until you're ready to go for game. And of course, they want to go to 1 as fast as possible, so they are just going to be taking every hit that goes their way. And that means that we have to find our Isho like yesterday, and unfortunately we are not able to find our Isho. I do play the brand new here, but I can't dig and find the Isho, unfortunately. So yeah, I'm just gonna do the best with what I've got, and I do want that Kuzan to stick just so I can be able to draw, and unfortunately it does go down because of that Nami trashing a trigger card to KO my Kuzan. Here's a cool play. I'm gonna play the Rebecca here to grab back Sanji, but off of Rebecca's effect, play the Helmeppo to be able to play the Sanji and KO that Katakuri, so we are getting rid of some of the bigger threats on his side of the field. But now we are in Enel's territory. This is where he loves to thrive, just playing big bodies turn after turn. He is going to play that ace to be able to heal, and now he's going to start pressuring our life very slowly. I am going to commit the 2K Tsuru onto the field to be able to pop the Rocket Boots Luffy with the Jack effect, so he doesn't have a means to be popping some of our bodies on his side or in his turn. But more importantly and more interestingly, that Jack being rested does mean that he can attack into it, so I'm basically saying to my opponent, hey, you can either play another big cost body, or you can start trying to swing into that Jack. And he does choose to swing into the Jack, but I do have all the counter in hand to be able to protect it. And now coming back to my turn, I am going to start committing a whole lot of swings into that Gidatsu to try and fish some of the counter out of hand. But that's all a ploy just so I can attach the rest of my Dawn and swing into that ace, and he does give me 4 cards out of hand, so we're making a whole lot of progress there. But unfortunately for me, I am running out of cards in hand, so I'm not going to be able to protect that Jack for much longer. I do give the rest of the cards in my hand, and it does make it back to my side of the field, but again, yeah, we did lose a lot of the other cards on my side of the board to be able to protect it. We absolutely need that Jack on our side of the field to stay up, just so we can deal with his side of the board a little bit better, especially a lot of his big body. So we are going to commit a lot of Dawn to that and swing into his ace, which does feel bad because he can just very well put another ace on his side of the field and then swing into my Jack. But yeah, he is going to start with the Nami swing into my Jack, so we do know he's not going to be putting up another big body on this turn, so we're going to feel pretty decent about that. And coming back to my turn, we did put ourselves in a position to where we can just trade back and forth, putting one big body out on the side of the field at a time. So we do play the Moria on my side of the field, being able to grab a little bit more extra cards in hand and then establish the blocker, so that's going to be pretty good. And his big body of choice per turn is going to be the ace, so he is going to heal, putting himself back at 3, which is going to be really rough because that is a whole lot of life to try and go through. But we do play the Kaido, not being able to KO anything on his side of the field, or sorry, trash. But we do get a card out of hand, which is going to be that Frankie, which kind of feels bad because that means he's got a whole lot of other really good cards in hand or other 2Ks to be able to defend. So I'm not feeling the greatest about that. And Raigo does come down to be able to KO my Kaido, and he does establish the 2-cost Shirahoshi blocker. Now I think this card is actually really interesting, but it didn't see a whole lot of play in earlier formats because of RP Law, but now that RP Law isn't a thing, it is going to be putting in a whole lot of work, especially in that Enel strategy. And I did KO it, giving my opponent an extra life, but I really thought that I didn't want that blocker to be there. Additionally, I kind of also spaghetti brained and forgot that it only happens when KO'd by effects, and if you use it as a blocker, it doesn't get the extra effect there. Should have mentioned this a whole lot sooner, but this is like maybe turn 2 or 3 of overtime, so At this point, I'm just trying to figure out how to stay with more life than him, so I do try and establish that blocker through the Moria, but he is just going to very aggressively swing into my life, and that's just going to be really hard to come back from, so unfortunately, I do not have it here.
God, I was hoping you were gonna forget. Come on. I was gonna block that so hard.
Oh my gosh. As soon as I saw this, I was like, no!
I'm playing Vegapunk.
Nice. Not a leader, huh?
That will.
Oh! Alt art, baby 5. There you go.
So we ended the day at 3-1, pushing our overall record to 37-23. I think that this was a good showing for our ST14 Luffy, and I think that I was playing at some of my best here. Obviously I didn't win tonight, but I felt like I was on my A game in terms of remembering what cards my opponent had in hand, and just in general a lot of solid fundamentals. I didn't manage to complete the quest bounty in today's episode, but that means we can devote another episode to Black Luffy. I had a lot of fun with this leader, and I hope you're excited for the next time I play a Black Luffy. Maybe there'll even be some purple in there. Thank you so much for watching. If you like the content, drop a like and sub to the channel. The more subscribers we get, the closer we inch to the big sub bounty. And speaking of bounties, don't forget to leave a comment suggesting your new bounty. New waves of bounties drop every 5 episodes. And while you're down there, let me know your thoughts on today's episode. Until next time, drink your water, pass out love, hugs, kisses, mwah.